Snoop Dogg, one of the biggest icons in the rap industry, had just gone through an incredibly busy year. His schedule was packed with sold-out performances, late-night recording sessions, and countless events where he was the center of attention. From dazzling stages in Los Angeles to international shows in Tokyo, London, and Sydney, Snoop was constantly on the move. While he always maintained his signature calm demeanor and unique style, deep down, he felt his body and mind were in desperate need of a break. One morning, as he sat in his studio with a cup of coffee in hand, Snoop gazed out the window and realized it had been far too long since he had taken time for himself. The endless hustle had made him forget what true relaxation felt like. He thought back to past vacations, where he could sit by the beach, listen to the waves crashing, and let his mind drift with the breeze. Those were rare moments when he could set aside fame, pressure, and responsibilities to simply be himself. "It's time for a vacation," Snoop told himself. He decided to take a week off to escape everything. No schedules, no stress, just peace and relaxation. After considering several destinations, he chose a luxurious resort in Europe, renowned for its breathtaking scenery, top-tier service, and absolute privacy. The resort was a five-star hotel perched atop a hill, offering sweeping views of the Mediterranean Sea. Not only was it famous for its exquisite architecture, but also for its warm hospitality, something Snoop was eagerly looking forward to. He quickly contacted his assistant to book the trip. "Get me the best penthouse," he said. "I want a place with a big balcony where I can sit and watch the sunset while enjoying a glass of wine." His assistant, well-versed in Snoop's preferences, swiftly made all the arrangements. Within hours, the penthouse was booked, and Snoop began to feel excited about the upcoming trip. In the days leading up to his departure, Snoop took time to prepare. He picked out comfortable yet stylish outfits, perfect for a relaxing getaway. He also packed a few books he had been meaning to read but hadn't had the time for. "This will be my chance to truly unwind," he thought. He also decided to take a break from social media during his vacation, allowing himself to fully focus on recharging. The day of departure finally arrived. Snoop, with his signature swagger, boarded his private jet, carrying a sense of anticipation. He envisioned the days ahead, waking up to gentle sunlight, enjoying delicious meals served right to him, and spending peaceful evenings under a starry sky. It felt like he was stepping into a dream. When the plane landed at the airport near the resort, Snoop was greeted by a luxurious limousine waiting to take him to the hotel. The road to the resort wound through lush green hills, lined with olive trees and lavender fields stretching as far as the eye could see. The fresh air and natural scents immediately put Snoop at ease. He smiled, thinking he had made the right decision. As the car approached the hotel, Snoop couldn't help but be impressed by its beauty. The hotel was built in a classic style with a modern touch, featuring pristine white walls and vibrant red-tiled roofs. From a distance, he could see the infinity pool glistening under the sun and the meticulously maintained gardens surrounding the property. It truly felt like a paradise for relaxation. Snoop stepped into the hotel lobby, which was adorned with artistic paintings and dazzling crystal chandeliers. The atmosphere exuded both luxury and warmth. He felt satisfied, knowing he would be spending a week in such a remarkable place. The reception staff, dressed impeccably in their uniforms, greeted him with smiles. "Welcome, Mr. Snoop Dogg," they said. "We are honored to have you with us for your vacation." Snoop nodded, thanked them, and received his room key. He was escorted to his penthouse, which exceeded all his expectations. The spacious suite featured large glass doors that opened onto a balcony with a panoramic view of the Mediterranean Sea. The interior was elegantly designed, with every detail reflecting care and sophistication. A bottle of fine wine and a basket of fresh fruit were placed on the table as a welcome gift from the hotel. Snoop stepped out onto the balcony, took a deep breath, and felt the cool sea breeze on his face. He sat down on a lounge chair, closed his eyes, and let his mind drift with the sound of the waves. This was the moment he had been waiting for, a peaceful vacation with no stress, no schedules, just him and the tranquility of the surroundings. However, Snoop had no idea that the vacation he had been looking forward to would not go as planned. Unexpected events were waiting for him, events that would completely change his experience at the resort. But for now, he wasn't thinking about that. He was simply enjoying the present moment, hoping this would be a getaway to remember. Snoop Dogg walked into the hotel lobby with his usual confident and relaxed demeanor, the way he always appeared in public. The hotel lobby was a grand space, adorned with elegant artwork and sparkling crystal chandeliers. The atmosphere exuded luxury and sophistication, exactly what he expected from a five-star resort. However, as soon as he stepped through the doors, Snoop sensed that something was off. The curious and cold stares from the hotel staff began to focus on him. These weren't the admiring or welcoming looks he was used to receiving, but rather judgmental, indifferent, and even slightly hostile glances. A few staff members whispered to each other, their eyes scanning Snoop as if they were evaluating him. With his life experience, Snoop immediately recognized the difference in how they were looking at him. He approached the reception desk, where a young staff member was standing. Instead of offering a warm smile, the receptionist appeared uneasy and uncomfortable. "Hello," the receptionist said with a tone that lacked enthusiasm. "How can I help you?" Snoop raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised by the lack of hospitality. He was used to being warmly welcomed wherever he went, especially in high-end places like this. Still, he remained calm and replied, "I've booked the penthouse here. My name is Snoop Dogg." The receptionist stared at him for a moment before looking down to check the computer. But instead of quickly confirming the reservation, the staff member hesitated. "Can you show me your booking confirmation?" the receptionist asked with a tone of suspicion. Although Snoop felt slightly annoyed, he politely took out his phone and showed the email confirmation of his booking. The receptionist glanced at the screen, but instead of processing it immediately, continued to scrutinize Snoop from head to toe. "Do you have any identification?" the receptionist added, with an increasingly unfriendly tone. Before Snoop could respond, a middle-aged man in a neatly tailored suit stepped out from behind the reception desk. This was the hotel manager, who had apparently been called over by the receptionist. The manager looked at Snoop with a judgmental gaze, as if trying to find a reason to question his presence there. "Excuse me?" the manager said coldly. "Are you sure you've booked a room here? We don't want any trouble." The manager's words made the atmosphere in the lobby tense. Snoop, who was no stranger to uncomfortable situations, still felt insulted by the way he was being treated. He looked the manager straight in the eye, keeping his voice calm but firm. "I've booked the penthouse here. Here's my confirmation." He took out his passport and handed it to the manager. The man took it, but instead of professionally verifying it, he stared at Snoop as if trying to find a reason to deny him. "We just want to make sure everything is in order," the manager said, but his tone carried no positive intent. Snoop felt his patience beginning to wear thin. He knew very well that their treatment of him wasn't due to any professional reason, but rather prejudice. He had encountered similar situations before, where people judged him not based on who he was or his accomplishments, but on his appearance and background. "Listen," Snoop said, his voice low but commanding. "I don't know what your problem is, but I've booked a room here, and I expect to be treated like any other guest. If you don't want me here, just say it outright." The manager, slightly taken aback by Snoop's directness, maintained his rigid attitude. "We just want to ensure that our hotel maintains the highest standards," he said, implying that Snoop didn't meet those standards. The tension in the lobby grew heavier. A few other guests seated in the waiting area began to notice the conversation. Some whispered to each other while others took out their phones, possibly to record the incident. Despite feeling insulted, Snoop kept his composure. He knew that if he lost his temper, it would only give these people more justification for their behavior. He looked the manager straight in the eye and said, "I don't need to prove anything to you. I've paid for this room, and I expect to receive my key right now." After a moment of hesitation, the manager finally relented. He signaled to the receptionist, who quickly printed out the paperwork and handed Snoop his key. However, their attitudes remained unchanged. There was no apology, no warm welcome that Snoop should have received. Snoop took the key, gave a brief thank you, and walked toward the elevator. As the elevator doors closed, he let out a sigh. He couldn't understand why, even in a luxurious place like this, he still had to face discrimination. When he entered the penthouse, Snoop tried to push aside the negative feelings and focus on enjoying his vacation. But deep down, he knew that this experience had left a mark on him. He told himself that he wouldn't let this incident slide so easily. For now, though, he decided to set everything aside and enjoy the stunning space of his room. Little did he know, the events that would follow would make his vacation far more complicated than he could have imagined. The luxurious hotel lobby, adorned with sparkling chandeliers and walls decorated with expensive artwork, suddenly felt suffocating as the hotel manager approached. Dressed in a sleek black suit, his face was cold, and his eyes carried a judgmental glare. Snoop, who had just entered the lobby with a casual yet confident demeanor, immediately sensed the difference in how he was being looked at. The hotel manager stopped in front of Snoop, his cold voice loud enough for everyone around to hear. "Excuse me, but I'm afraid you don't meet the standards of our hotel. I must ask you to leave immediately." The words cut through the previously quiet atmosphere like a sharp blade. Other guests in the lobby, who had been engrossed in their conversations or scrolling through their phones, suddenly turned their heads. Some began whispering, their curious eyes fixed on Snoop. A few even discreetly pulled out their phones and started recording the scene. Snoop stood there, feeling as though all eyes were on him. He wasn't someone who easily succumbed to insults, but this time, the blatant discrimination was too obvious to ignore, leaving him feeling deeply hurt. He looked the manager straight in the eye, trying to maintain his composure. "What's the reason?" Snoop asked, his voice calm and steady, but with a firmness that couldn't be missed. The manager smirked, as if Snoop's question was an inconvenience. "We have certain standards for our guests. I think you understand what I mean." Snoop frowned. He didn't need to ask further to understand the implication. His casual attire, his dark skin, and perhaps even his background, all of it had been judged at first glance. "So, what are your standards? Wearing expensive suits? Or having a different skin color?" Snoop asked, his voice still calm, but his eyes now reflected disappointment. The manager didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to the nearby security guards and gave them a nod. Two tall guards immediately approached, standing on either side of Snoop as if preparing to escort him out. "We don't want to cause trouble," the manager said, his voice dripping with false politeness. "But if you don't leave now, we'll have to take stronger measures." Snoop took a deep breath. He knew that if he reacted strongly, the situation would only escalate. The people around him were recording, and he didn't want his image to be distorted by any action that could be misinterpreted. "Fine," Snoop said, his voice lowering. "I'll leave. But remember, the way you treated me today won't be forgotten." He turned and walked slowly toward the exit. The curious eyes of the onlookers followed him, some whispering to each other, but no one dared to speak up in his defense. As Snoop stepped out of the hotel, he felt a cold gust of air wash over him. It wasn't the weather. It was the coldness and indifference of the people inside. He paused for a moment, looking up at the towering hotel building, its glittering lights seeming to mock him. His phone vibrated. It was a message from his close friend, Jay. "You okay? I heard you're at that hotel." Snoop gave a faint smile. He didn't want to recount what had just happened, at least not yet. He replied, "I'm fine. Let's catch up later." But deep down, he wasn't fine. This incident wasn't just a personal insult. It was a bitter reminder of the prejudice and discrimination that still existed in society. That evening, a video of the incident began circulating on social media. A guest in the lobby had recorded the entire scene of Snoop being asked to leave by the hotel manager. The video quickly gained thousands of views and comments. "This is unbelievable. How can a luxury hotel treat a guest like this? This is blatant discrimination. They need to be held accountable. This man is so composed. I'm not sure I could have stayed calm like he did in that situation." Snoop had no idea that while he was trying to move past the incident, it had become a hot topic online. Some people even managed to identify him, realizing he was a young artist on the rise. The next morning, Snoop received a call from his manager. "Have you seen the news?" "No," Snoop replied, his voice still tired. "You're trending on social media. The video from the hotel last night has gone viral. People are standing up for you." Snoop was silent for a moment. He didn't know how to feel. He didn't want to be the center of attention in this way, but at the same time, he knew this was an opportunity to speak out against the injustice he and so many others faced. "So, what should I do now?" Snoop asked. "Do you want to speak up? If you're ready, we can arrange an interview or post something on social media. This is your chance to share your perspective." Snoop thought for a moment. He wasn't someone who sought attention, but he also didn't want to stay silent in the face of injustice. "All right," he said. "Let me think about it. But if I speak up, I want it to be about more than just me. I want to talk about others who've been treated this way too." His manager agreed. "I understand. Take your time. But remember, you're not alone. A lot of people are supporting you." Snoop hung up and looked out the window. The morning sunlight streamed in, but there was still a shadow lingering in his heart. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But if this incident could bring about even a small change, he was ready to face it. And so, what seemed like a personal insult turned into the beginning of a new journey for Snoop, a journey to fight for fairness and equality. As soon as Snoop left the hotel, he felt a simmering anger inside him. He couldn't believe that in this day and age, blatant discrimination could still exist so openly. With trembling hands, he opened his phone and scrolled through messages from friends and fans who had witnessed the incident or heard about it. Some advised him to let it go, but most urged him to speak up. Snoop knew that if he stayed silent, this story would just become one of thousands of forgotten incidents. He decided he wouldn't let that happen. Snoop opened his social media app, where he had millions of followers. He began typing word by word, pouring all his pent-up emotions into the post. He recounted the details of what had happened at the hotel, from the disdainful looks of the receptionist to the insulting words spoken to him. He didn't forget to mention the video that a fan had recorded, capturing the entire incident. This video was undeniable evidence, and Snoop knew it would be his most powerful weapon in fighting the injustice he had just experienced. Along with his post, Snoop uploaded the video. In the footage, viewers could clearly see how the hotel staff refused to serve him, even though he had a prior reservation and all the necessary documents. The receptionist's voice was cold, and their gaze was filled with contempt. The video ended with Snoop walking away, his face showing clear disappointment and hurt. In his post, Snoop wrote, "I cannot stay silent in the face of this injustice. This is not just my story, but the story of millions of others around the world who face discrimination every day. We cannot let this continue. I urge all of you who believe in fairness and equality to speak up. Join me in standing against this injustice." Within minutes of sharing the post, it received thousands of likes, comments, and shares. Snoop's fans, who had always supported him, quickly spread the story. They used hashtags like #JusticeForSnoop, #EndDiscrimination, and #EqualityForAll to draw attention to the issue. The story didn't just stay within Snoop's fan community but spread across social media platforms. Major news outlets quickly picked up the story. Within hours, Snoop's experience was featured on the front pages of many online news sites. Headlines like "Famous Star Faces Discrimination at Luxury Hotel" and "Snoop Speaks Out Against Injustice" were everywhere. The video was shared millions of times, becoming the center of discussions on social media. It wasn't just fans who spoke out. Many celebrities also voiced their support for Snoop. A famous singer wrote, "I'm heartbroken to see my friend go through this. We need to stand together to end discrimination." A top actor shared, "Snoop's story is a reminder that, while we've come a long way, there's still so much work to be done to achieve true equality." Human rights organizations also joined the conversation. A major organization published an article on their website expressing their support for Snoop and calling on hotels worldwide to review their policies to ensure no discrimination occurs. They also urged governments to implement stricter regulations to protect the rights of all individuals, regardless of race, nationality, or social status. Meanwhile, the hotel where the incident occurred faced a wave of intense criticism. Their social media pages were flooded with angry comments from the public. Many demanded a public apology from the hotel and concrete actions to rectify the situation. Some even called for a boycott of the hotel, arguing that they didn't deserve public support. Under pressure from public outrage, the hotel management was forced to issue an official statement. In the statement, they expressed their deep regret over the incident and promised to conduct an internal investigation to determine responsibility. They also pledged to organize training sessions for their staff on equality and anti-discrimination. However, this apology did little to calm the public's anger. Many felt it was merely a move to appease public opinion rather than a genuine act of remorse. In the days that followed, Snoop's story continued to dominate the media. Television programs invited him to share more about his experience. In one interview, Snoop said, "I don't want this story to end with just condemning one hotel. I want it to serve as a reminder that we need to change. No one deserves to be treated like this, and I will do everything in my power to ensure that others don't have to go through the same thing." Snoop's story didn't just stop at exposing injustice. It became a source of inspiration for many others. People began sharing their own stories of facing discrimination because of their race, gender, or background. These stories created a powerful wave, sparking discussions about equality and fairness worldwide. Snoop never imagined that what seemed like a small incident could have such a massive impact. He felt grateful for the support he received, but also realized the enormous responsibility he now carried. He decided he wouldn't stop here. With the community's support, Snoop began planning a major campaign to raise awareness about discrimination. He believed that if people came together and took action, the world could become a better place. Snoop's story wasn't just a call out, it was a call to action, a call for change, so that no one would have to endure injustice simply because they were different. And from that moment, a new movement was born, with the hope of creating a fairer and more equal world for everyone. After Snoop Dogg's story spread widely on social media, the hotel where the incident occurred quickly became the target of intense criticism. The hotel management, feeling the growing pressure from public opinion, was forced to issue an official statement. However, instead of admitting their mistakes and taking responsibility, they chose to release a half-hearted apology, blaming the incident on a misunderstanding and internal procedural issues. In their statement, the hotel wrote, "We deeply regret the incident that occurred and any inconvenience it may have caused our guest. This was an unfortunate misunderstanding, and we are committed to reviewing our internal procedures to ensure that similar situations do not happen in the future." This apology was immediately met with widespread backlash. Many people felt that it was not a genuine apology but merely an attempt to pacify public outrage. The term misunderstanding was heavily criticized, as the video Snoop had posted clearly showed the discrimination he had endured. There was nothing in the video to suggest a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate act carried out by the hotel staff with contempt and disrespect. On social media, the wave of outrage continued to grow. Posts criticizing the hotel appeared everywhere, with thousands of comments demanding accountability. One user wrote, "This was not a misunderstanding. This was blatant discrimination. Do you really think a shallow apology like this will calm our anger?" Another commented, "If it weren't for Snoop's video, would the hotel have admitted to anything at all? This is a fake apology, and we won't accept it." The backlash didn't stop there. Major media outlets began covering the story. Articles not only focused on Snoop's experience, but also delved into the hotel's history. Many similar stories from other customers began to surface, revealing that this was not the first time the hotel had engaged in discriminatory behavior. One former guest shared on social media, "I stayed at this hotel once and was also treated poorly. The staff always showed disdain when I requested services, just because I wasn't white. I stayed silent because I thought there was nothing I could do. But now, thanks to Snoop, I feel like I need to speak up." Another story was shared by a couple. "We booked a room at this hotel for our honeymoon, but when we arrived, they told us our reservation had been canceled without explanation. Then we saw another couple who looked wealthier get a room immediately. We felt humiliated but had no evidence to fight back." These stories quickly went viral, adding to the pressure on the hotel. Journalists began investigating further, and some former employees of the hotel also came forward. One former staff member revealed, "I witnessed many cases where guests were treated unfairly simply because they didn't fit the image the hotel wanted to project. Management always emphasized prioritizing high-class customers, which often meant discriminating against people who weren't white or didn't look wealthy." These revelations only fueled public outrage. Many people began calling for a boycott of the hotel, not just because of how they treated Snoop, but also because of the systemic discriminatory practices they had engaged in for years. The hashtag #boycottthehotel quickly became a trending topic on social media, with millions of posts urging people not to support a business that perpetuates injustice. Meanwhile, human rights organizations also got involved. One major organization issued a statement. "What happened to Snoop Dogg is not an isolated incident, but a clear example of the discrimination that many people face daily. We call on businesses, especially in the service industry, to take responsibility and commit to creating a fair and equal environment for everyone." Some organizations even announced plans to conduct independent investigations into the hotel's operations to ensure that discriminatory practices would not continue. They also urged governments to implement stricter regulations to protect the rights of customers and employees in the service industry. Under mounting pressure, the hotel management was forced to hold a press conference to address the public backlash. During the conference, the hotel's CEO appeared visibly tense as he attempted to issue another apology. He said, "We apologize for what happened and take full responsibility for the shortcomings in our procedures. We are committed to improving and ensuring that all our guests are treated fairly and respectfully." However, this apology still failed to appease the public. Many people believed that without the pressure from public outrage, the hotel would never have admitted to any wrongdoing. A human rights activist commented, This is not genuine remorse. This is just an attempt to salvage their reputation. We need to keep up the pressure to ensure that real changes are made. In the weeks that followed, the hotel continued to face the consequences of the incident. Bookings dropped significantly, and many business partners began reconsidering their relationships with the hotel. Some major travel companies announced that they would temporarily suspend partnerships with the hotel until it could prove that meaningful changes had been implemented. Meanwhile, Snoop continued to use his platform to advocate for change. He participated in interviews, sharing his story and emphasizing the importance of fighting against injustice. He said, "This isn't just my story. This is the story of everyone who has ever been treated unfairly simply because they were different. We need to speak up and take action to ensure that no one else has to go through this." Snoop's story became more than just a call-out. It became a rallying cry for change. It inspired countless others to share their own experiences of discrimination, creating a powerful wave of stories that sparked discussions about equality and fairness worldwide. The hotel's actions, or lack thereof, served as a stark reminder of the systemic issues that still exist in many industries. But Snoop's courage in speaking out also showed the power of using one's voice to demand accountability and change. His story became a symbol of resistance against injustice and a call to action for a better, fairer future. And so, from this incident, a new movement began, driven by the hope of creating a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their background. After days of deep thought and consideration, Snoop Dogg decided that he could not let this incident pass without action. This was not just a personal insult, but a systemic issue, reflecting the injustice that many people face daily. Snoop understood that with his influence, he had a responsibility to stand up, not just to protect his own dignity, but to set a precedent and send a powerful message that discrimination would not be tolerated. Snoop began by contacting a top legal team, composed of experienced lawyers specializing in human rights and discrimination cases. This team included renowned attorneys who had handled major lawsuits and achieved significant victories. They understood that this was not just an ordinary lawsuit, but a symbolic legal battle that could have a profound impact on society. In a press conference held at the law firm's office, Snoop officially announced his decision to sue the hotel. He appeared calm but determined. Standing before dozens of cameras and reporters, he declared, "I'm not doing this just for myself. This is for everyone who has ever been treated unfairly, for those who don't have a voice or the opportunity to stand up for themselves. We must fight for justice, and I will do everything in my power to ensure that no one else has to go through what I did." Snoop's lawsuit was filed in court, accusing the hotel of discriminatory behavior, defamation, and causing emotional distress. The legal team detailed the evidence in the lawsuit, including the video recorded by a fan, social media posts, and testimonies from witnesses who were present during the incident. The lawsuit also emphasized that this was not an isolated incident, but part of a larger issue, as the hotel had been accused of discriminatory practices multiple times in the past. Snoop's legal team also demanded significant compensation, not just to cover the damages he had suffered, but to send a strong message that such behavior would come at a high cost. However, Snoop made it clear that if the court awarded him compensation, he would use the money to establish a fund to support victims of discrimination and promote awareness campaigns about human rights. When news of the lawsuit broke, public opinion erupted once again. Many people expressed strong support for Snoop's decision. On social media, hashtags like #JusticeForSnoop and #EndDiscrimination once again trended. One fan wrote, "Snoop isn't just an artist, he's a hero. He's using his voice to fight for all of us. I fully support him." Another commented, "This is necessary. If we don't stand up and fight, this kind of behavior will continue. Thank you, Snoop, for not staying silent." However, not everyone supported the decision. Some critics claimed that Snoop was blowing the issue out of proportion or seeking attention. Others suggested that he should let it go and focus on his career instead of prolonging the matter. But Snoop refused to let the negative opinions shake his resolve. He knew that in any fight for justice, there would always be those who didn't understand or agree. What mattered was staying firm in his beliefs and continuing to move forward. Meanwhile, the hotel was not sitting idly by. They hired their own legal team to defend themselves in court. In a new statement, the hotel continued to insist that the incident was merely a misunderstanding and that they had no intention of discriminating against anyone. They also stated that they would fully cooperate with the court to clarify the matter. However, the public remained skeptical of their words, especially after numerous similar stories from other customers had come to light. The legal battle between Snoop and the hotel quickly became a focal point for the media. Television programs, newspapers, and online platforms provided constant updates on the case. Many legal experts weighed in, calling it a landmark lawsuit that could set an important precedent for addressing discriminatory behavior in the service industry. One prominent lawyer commented, "This lawsuit isn't just about Snoop Dogg and the hotel. It's a legal battle that could change how we view and address discriminatory practices. If Snoop wins, it will send a powerful message that no one, whether an individual or an organization, can escape accountability for violating human rights." In the weeks that followed, Snoop continued to use his platform to raise awareness about the issue. He participated in interviews, shared his story, and emphasized the importance of fighting for justice. He also encouraged others who had been victims of discrimination to speak out and seek help. "We can't change the world if we stay silent," Snoop said in one interview. "Every voice matters. If you've ever been treated unfairly, speak up. I'm here to tell you that you're not alone." Snoop's decision to sue was not just a legal action, but a powerful statement of determination and courage. He was not only fighting for himself, but for everyone who had ever been treated unfairly. And regardless of the outcome of the lawsuit, Snoop had already proven that, in a world full of injustice, standing up and fighting back is essential to creating change. The day the trial officially began, the atmosphere in the courtroom was more tense than ever. This was not just a lawsuit between Snoop Dogg and a hotel, but a symbolic legal battle representing efforts to combat discrimination in society. Media outlets from all over gathered, with reporters crowding outside the courthouse to cover the event. Hundreds of Snoop's fans were also present, carrying banners and chanting slogans in support of him. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was solemn. Snoop appeared calm but determined, sitting with his legal team. On the other side, representatives of the hotel were present with their own legal team, both sides prepared for a long and intense legal confrontation. The trial began with opening statements from Snoop's lawyer. In his remarks, the lawyer emphasized that this was not just a personal lawsuit, but an opportunity to shed light on a larger issue: discrimination in the service industry. He said, "My client, Mr. Snoop Dogg, is not just a victim of discrimination, but a symbol for millions of others who have been treated unfairly because of their skin color, background, or social status. We are here today to seek justice, not just for Mr. Snoop, but for everyone who has ever endured injustice." The hotel's lawyer, in their opening statement, continued to assert that the incident was merely a misunderstanding and that there was no intent to discriminate on the part of the hotel. They attempted to downplay the severity of the incident, claiming that the actions of the hotel staff did not reflect the organization's policies or values. One of the most critical parts of the trial was the testimony from witnesses. Snoop's legal team summoned several hotel employees who had worked at the time of the incident. Some employees, under oath, admitted that hotel management often made discriminatory remarks and took discriminatory actions. A receptionist who had worked on the day of the incident testified, "I was instructed to be more thorough with guests who weren't white. Management often emphasized that we needed to prioritize serving high-class customers, which usually meant discriminating against those who didn't fit the image the hotel wanted to project." This testimony left the courtroom in silence. It was a powerful piece of evidence showing that discrimination was not just an isolated act, but part of the hotel's workplace culture. Another employee who had quit after the incident also spoke out. "I felt very uncomfortable working in such an environment. I witnessed many cases where guests were treated unfairly simply because they didn't meet the standards set by management. What happened with Mr. Snoop Dogg was just the tipping point." In addition to witness testimony, Snoop's legal team presented other critical evidence, including the video recorded by a fan. The video was played in court, clearly showing how the hotel staff refused to serve Snoop, even though he had provided all the necessary documents and had a prior reservation. In the video, the receptionist's cold tone and disdainful gaze were undeniable. The video ended with Snoop leaving the hotel, his face clearly showing disappointment and hurt. Furthermore, internal documents from the hotel were presented as evidence. Some emails and notes from management revealed that they had given implicit instructions to prioritize certain groups of customers, while deliberately making things difficult for others. These documents further strengthened the argument that discrimination at the hotel was not an isolated incident, but a systemic issue. The hotel's legal team attempted to refute the evidence and testimony. They argued that the video did not show the full context of the incident and that the testimony from former employees might have been influenced by personal grievances or conflicts with management. However, these arguments were not convincing enough to diminish the weight of the evidence presented by Snoop's legal team. The public, following the trial through the media, also expressed dissatisfaction with the hotel's attempts to justify its actions. The trial not only attracted the attention of those present in the courtroom, but also became a focal point in the media. Major television channels broadcast live coverage, while social media was flooded with posts, comments, and analyses about the trial's developments. Many celebrities continued to voice their support for Snoop, praising his courage and determination in fighting for justice. A famous singer wrote on Twitter, "Snoop isn't just fighting for himself, he's fighting for all of us. This is a big step forward in the fight against injustice." Human rights organizations also closely followed the trial, seeing it as an opportunity to raise awareness about discrimination in the service industry and other sectors. When the first day of the trial ended, both sides left the courtroom in tension. Snoop's legal team appeared confident with the evidence and testimony they had presented, while the hotel's side seemed to be under significant pressure from public opinion and the unfavorable evidence. Outside the courthouse, Snoop's fans continued to chant slogans in support of him. One fan shared, "I believe Snoop will win. He's doing the right thing, and we'll always stand by him." The trial had only just begun, but the events of the first day already indicated that this would be a challenging legal battle. However, with the truth and justice on their side, Snoop and his team believed they would win, not just for themselves, but for everyone who had ever been treated unfairly. The trial continued into the following days, drawing increasing attention from the public and the media. This was no longer just a personal lawsuit between Snoop Dogg and a hotel, but had become a symbolic legal battle representing efforts to combat discrimination in society. The truth gradually came to light through testimonies, evidence, and the sharp arguments from Snoop's legal team, leaving the public both shocked and outraged. Snoop Dogg's legal team, with their extensive experience and thorough preparation, presented their case convincingly in court. They did not just focus on the incident Snoop had experienced, but expanded the issue, emphasizing that this was not an isolated case, but part of a systemic problem. The lead attorney for Snoop stated, "We are not just here to talk about what happened to my client, but to shed light on a sad reality. Discrimination still exists in the service industry, and it has hurt so many people. This is not a one-off incident, but part of a system that has gone unchallenged for far too long." They presented evidence showing that the hotel had a long history of unfair treatment toward customers who did not fit the image they wanted to project. Internal documents, emails, and testimonies from former employees painted a clear picture of how the hotel prioritized serving certain groups of customers while deliberately making things difficult for others. One of the most critical parts of the trial was the testimony from witnesses, including both customers and former hotel employees. The stories they shared not only reinforced the arguments of Snoop's legal team, but also highlighted the severity of the issue. A customer who had previously stayed at the hotel shared, "I was treated very poorly when I came here. Even though I had made a reservation and provided all the necessary documents, the staff still acted suspicious and unfriendly. I felt like I wasn't welcome just because I didn't look like the kind of customer they wanted to serve." Another witness, a former hotel employee, testified, "Management often emphasized that we had to prioritize serving high-class customers, and that usually meant discriminating against people who weren't white or didn't look wealthy. I witnessed many cases where customers were denied service or treated unfairly simply because they didn't meet the hotel's standards." These testimonies not only clarified the truth about how the hotel operated, but also fueled public outrage. People began to realize that what Snoop Dogg had endured was not an isolated incident, but part of a larger issue that affected many others. In addition to witness testimonies, Snoop's legal team presented other compelling evidence. One of the most significant pieces of evidence was video footage recorded by customers and employees, clearly showing how the hotel treated guests who didn't fit the image they wanted to maintain. In one video, a receptionist could be heard telling a customer, "We're not sure this is the right place for you. Perhaps you should look for another hotel. This video, along with the hotel's internal documents, painted a clear picture of how discrimination had become ingrained in the workplace culture. Emails from management in which they instructed staff to select customers left the courtroom in silence. One email from a senior manager read, "We need to ensure the hotel always maintains a luxurious and high-class image. Pay attention to customers who don't fit this standard and handle them discreetly." As these truths were revealed, the public grew increasingly outraged. On social media, hashtags like #JusticeForSnoop and #EndDiscrimination continued to trend. Many people expressed strong support for Snoop and condemned the hotel's behavior. One social media user wrote, "It's shameful that such a big hotel could act this way. Thank you, Snoop, for standing up and exposing the truth. This is a lesson for all of us." Another commented, "This isn't just about Snoop Dogg. This is about everyone who has ever been treated unfairly. We need to change this system." The public's outrage wasn't limited to social media. Many human rights organizations and social activists also spoke out, calling for stronger measures to combat discrimination in the service industry. Some organizations even launched campaigns to raise awareness about the issue and urge businesses to be held accountable for their actions. With undeniable evidence and growing public anger, the pressure on the hotel increased. The hotel's management, which initially tried to downplay the severity of the incident, was now forced to face the reality that they could not escape responsibility. In a recent statement, the hotel expressed regret over what had happened and promised to review its policies and procedures. However, this apology was not enough to appease the public, especially as the evidence showed that discrimination was deeply embedded in the hotel's culture. As the day's proceedings came to an end, Snoop's legal team appeared confident in what they had presented. The truth had been revealed, and justice seemed to be leaning in their favor. Outside the courthouse, Snoop's fans continued to chant slogans in support of him. One fan shared, "Snoop isn't just fighting for himself, he's fighting for all of us. He's a hero." The trial was far from over, but what had transpired so far showed that the truth and justice were gradually coming to light. Snoop and his team believed they would win, not just for themselves, but for everyone who had ever been treated unfairly. After many days of intense debate, the trial finally came to an end. The atmosphere in the courtroom was heavy as everyone, from the lawyers and witnesses to the public following the case, awaited the final verdict. This was no longer just a personal lawsuit, but had become a symbol of the fight against discrimination in society. When the judge announced the decision, the courtroom erupted. The judge, after carefully reviewing the evidence and testimonies from both sides, declared that the hotel had clearly engaged in discriminatory behavior and must take responsibility for the harm caused to Snoop Dogg. In the ruling, the judge emphasized, the actions of the hotel not only violated the personal rights of Mr. Snoop Dogg, but also went against the fundamental values of equality and fairness in society. This serves as a reminder that no one, regardless of their status or background, should be treated unfairly. According to the verdict, the hotel was ordered to pay a significant amount in damages to Snoop Dogg to compensate for the emotional and reputational harm he had endured. Additionally, the court required the hotel to issue a public apology through major media outlets and commit to improving its policies and procedures to ensure that no discrimination would occur in the future. When the verdict was announced, Snoop Dogg sat quietly for a moment, as if trying to fully absorb the significance of this victory. Then he stood up, smiled slightly, and shook hands with his legal team. Supporters in the courtroom applauded, and some even shed tears of emotion. This was not just Snoop's victory, but a victory for everyone who had ever been treated unfairly. On the other hand, the hotel's representatives appeared disappointed and bewildered. Their legal team left the courtroom in silence, avoiding the gazes of those around them. They knew they would not only face legal consequences, but also endure immense pressure from public opinion. After leaving the courtroom, Snoop Dogg held a brief press conference to share his thoughts. He spoke in a calm but emotional tone. "Today is not just a victory for me, but a victory for everyone who has ever been treated unfairly. I hope this case serves as a reminder that we must stand up against injustice, no matter where or to whom it happens. I want to thank everyone who supported me throughout this journey. This is not the end, but a new beginning for us to work together to build a fairer society." Snoop's words quickly spread across media outlets and social networks, receiving widespread support from the public. Many praised him not only for his resilience, but also for how he used his platform to fight for justice. Snoop Dogg's victory became a major event, widely covered by major media outlets and social networks. Articles, television programs, and social media posts all hailed this as an important step forward in the fight against discrimination. One social media user wrote, "Snoop Dogg is not just a talented artist but a true hero. He stood up and fought not just for himself, but for all of us. This is a big lesson for anyone who thinks they can get away with injustice." Many human rights organizations also praised the victory, viewing it as a prime example of using the law to protect the rights of those harmed by injustice. A representative from one human rights organization stated, "Snoop Dogg's victory is a reminder that justice can be achieved if we persist and don't give up. This is a significant step in raising awareness about discrimination in the service industry and beyond." For the hotel, the consequences of the lawsuit extended beyond the compensation and public apology. Their reputation was severely damaged, and they faced a wave of public criticism. Many customers declared they would never use the hotel's services again, and some business partners began reconsidering their relationships with the hotel. In an official statement, the hotel said, "We apologize for the mistakes that occurred and commit to taking the necessary measures to ensure that similar incidents will never happen again. We will conduct staff training and review all of our policies to create a fairer working and customer service environment." However, this apology was not enough to appease public opinion. Many believed the hotel was merely trying to salvage its image rather than genuinely committing to change. Snoop Dogg's legal victory not only brought justice for him, but also carried a broader significance for society. It sent a powerful message that discrimination in any form cannot be tolerated. It served as a reminder that everyone deserves to be treated fairly and with respect, regardless of their skin color, background, or social status. This case also set an important precedent, encouraging others to stand up and fight for their rights. Many believed this would be a turning point in raising awareness and driving change in the service industry and other sectors. As the case concluded, Snoop Dogg not only achieved justice for himself, but also became a symbol of the fight against injustice. He continued to use his voice and influence to raise awareness about the issue, calling on everyone to work together to build a fairer and more equal society. This victory was not just the end of Snoop's legal journey, but also a new beginning, offering hope to everyone who had ever been treated unfairly. And from this moment, a clear message was sent. Justice can always prevail, as long as we do not give up. After the tense days of the lawsuit, Snoop Dogg was finally able to enjoy some peace. He decided to take time to relax at another resort, where he was welcomed with the respect and warmth he deserved. The image of Snoop entering the resort, greeted by staff with bows and attentive service, was a stark contrast to what he had experienced before. More importantly, it was proof of the change he had helped bring about. When Snoop Dogg entered the resort, he was greeted by friendly smiles and thoughtful service. A receptionist with a beaming face said, "Welcome, Mr. Snoop Dogg. We are honored to serve you. If you have any requests, please don't hesitate to let us know." Gone were the suspicious looks and cold words from before. This time, Snoop felt the sincerity and respect from those around him. He smiled, thanked them, and realized that, while it was just a small moment, it carried great meaning. It wasn't just a change in how he was treated, but a sign that his efforts had begun to make an impact. On his first evening at the resort, Snoop Dogg held a small talk with fans and staff there. Standing on stage, his eyes filled with emotion, he shared his message. "The victory in the recent lawsuit wasn't just my victory. It was a victory for all of us. It's proof that when we unite and stand up against injustice, we can create change. But this isn't the end. We must continue to fight to ensure that no one has to endure such injustice again." He continued, "I don't want my story to just be a tale to tell. I want it to be an inspiration, so that anyone who has ever been treated unfairly has the courage to stand up and demand justice. We can't change the past, but we can change the future, and that future starts with us." His words were met with strong support from those present. One fan shared, "Your story has inspired me. I used to think there was nothing I could do when treated unfairly, but now I understand that if we don't stand up, injustice will continue to exist." Snoop Dogg's story quickly spread everywhere, becoming a symbol of the fight against discrimination and injustice. On social media, millions of people shared his story, accompanied by messages about equality and fairness. Hashtags like #JusticeForAll and #EndDiscrimination continued to trend, drawing attention from celebrities and human rights organizations alike. Many people began sharing their own stories of times they were treated unfairly because of their skin color, background, or social status. One social media user wrote, "Snoop Dogg's story gave me the courage to share my own. I was once denied service at a restaurant just because I wasn't dressed fancy enough. But now I know that we shouldn't stay silent. We deserve to be treated fairly." Beyond social media, Snoop's story was featured in television programs, articles, and even human rights seminars. Many human rights organizations used his story as a prime example to raise awareness about discrimination in the service industry and other fields. Snoop Dogg's lawsuit not only impacted the public, but also forced many businesses in the service industry to reevaluate how they operated. Many hotels, restaurants, and travel companies began organizing training sessions for their staff on diversity and equality to ensure that all customers were treated fairly and respectfully. A hotel manager shared in an interview, "Snoop Dogg's lawsuit was a wake-up call for all of us. We realized that to survive and thrive, we not only need to provide good service, but also ensure that every customer feels welcomed and respected." Many businesses also started collaborating with human rights organizations to develop new policies and procedures to completely eliminate discrimination in their work environments and customer service. Snoop Dogg's story was not just about injustice and victory, but also a reminder that change is possible if we don't give up. It encouraged individuals and organizations alike to take action together to build a fairer and more equal society. After the lawsuit, Snoop Dogg continued to use his voice and influence to drive change. He participated in campaigns to raise awareness about human rights, collaborated with human rights organizations, and even established a fund to support those who had experienced discrimination. He shared, "I don't want to stop at just my story. I want to help others so they don't have to go through what I went through. We can make that happen if we act together." The image of Snoop Dogg sitting on the balcony of the resort, looking out at the blue sea and the sunset, was a beautiful ending to his story. But for Snoop, this wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. A beginning for a longer journey, where he and his supporters would continue to fight to ensure that no one would have to endure the injustice he once faced. Snoop Dogg's story was not just a personal tale, but a reminder to all of us that change starts with each individual. And when we unite, no injustice is insurmountable.